I write a lot of my scripts using BJJ examples and terms because I'm very aware that BJJ is exploding in the English speaking world. I don't know how much of martial arts content on YouTube is BJJ content, but if someone told me it was like 60 or 70%, I'd probably believe them. Which is why when I tell people I don't do BJJ and don't really have any interest in it, people immediately have questions.
Why? 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 Why?
Now, before I jump into details, I want to say that I think ground game is super important for modern martial artists. You don't need to be crazy elite at it, but if you're one of those strikers who thinks you'll just never get taken down, you're fooling yourself. Also, a lot of my opinions come from a time when I was doing some BJJ. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Ground game is probably my weakest area in terms of overall martial skills, but the few things I do well on the ground, I'm fairly confident in. Certainly no black belt in, but good enough for most. As you'll see, a few of those things really colored my overall experience with BJJ. Finally, and I hope this is obvious, but it's the internet, so I'll make it super clear. If you enjoy BJJ, then continue to do it. This video is about why I don't do it, not why you should quit. First thing I really encountered with BJJ is probably the most popular criticism of the art as a whole, the guard pull. I actually don't mind guard pulling under the condition that you actually put me into your guard. What I don't like is just the whole sitting down nonsense. In any other martial art, if you want a certain position, you will inevitably have to fight for it. Whether you're cutting angles in boxing or dominating grips in judo, you have to earn positional comfort. In BJJ, it's just like, so anyway, I sit. It's not an athletic feat. It's not a martial feat. It's just a gamification of either the rules or general culture of the art. I get why competitors do it, but something being competitively legitimate doesn't really make it martially legitimate. Which brings me to thing number two. I feel like BJJ kind of lies to people about the bottom position. Maybe lies is too strong of a word, but at the very least, BJJ takes great pains to try and make the bottom position almost as powerful as the top position. Something I always found training BJJ was that in top position, or even sometimes in a guard, it would almost always be more efficient to just punch a guy. Why fish for a sub when his face is wide open? And yes, I get BJJ guys don't really worry about that on the basis of their competitive format. I just hear a lot about energy efficiency and economy of movement in BJJ, but I rarely hear BJJ point out that sometimes it's more efficient to not do BJJ from a martial standpoint. In general, I think whenever you add strikes or slams or push out rules or literally anything like that, the bottom position gets immediately worse. The vague parity that bottom and top position has in BJJ is mostly something manufactured by the rules, and I've just never really been a fan of that. Being on the bottom isn't a death sentence, but it's not nearly as comfortable as BJJ makes it out to be. I think training in a way that ignores this is kind of dangerous in a way, because people end up actively looking for bottom position and getting used to just chilling out down there, when in any other martial format, you're probably going to get slammed or have fists raining down on you. I'm not saying you can't be in bottom position in those other formats, but you have to know how to deal with those things, and I just think most BJJ players have no idea how to deal with downward pressure. My third reason mostly has to do with just some gym culture stuff. I understand that this is highly subjective, but these were experiences that really soured my time with BJJ, and they really have to deal with my own style. I vividly remember a few people getting genuinely irritated with me for two things. The first was that I threw people fairly often since I come from judo. This was probably the mid 2010s and before wrestling had penetrated into the BJJ ecosystem a bit more. But I do remember people getting absolutely pissed about some hip throws I was doing. I've heard the argument that I should have been making my partners aware that I was going to do takedowns, but that to me just seems like reminding my partners in a boxing gym that I might do a cross. Like, of course I'm going to do takedowns. It's a grappling art, and takedowns are a part of grappling. No one got hurt. I always make sure to try and preserve my partners, but the whole affair just left me with a really sour taste in my mouth. The other thing that really got on people's nerves was that I had this tendency to slip out of things and just stand back up, like repeatedly. I weigh a very intimidating 140 pounds, and I never, ever want to grapple with bigger guys on a level playing field. It's a very quick way to lose. I have a very particular style in judo that achieves this as well. But this always irritated people because they felt like I was stalling or not engaging when in reality I was just taking the superior position. I was standing up. I know since that time the whole just stand up meme has taken off and there is a lot more understanding that BJJ pins are, well, they're maybe not the greatest. But still, it just wasn't a super great experience for me. Finally, and I'm sure this won't be controversial at all, I find ground game to be important, but also intensely boring. I work escapes mostly, and I do so because I think I need them. But I could never get obsessed with guard passing the same way I could with takedowns or striking arts footwork. This is very subjective, of course. I just think it's not really my style. Why would I spend time passing legs to then try and go to the ground where I don't really want to be anyway, fishing for submissions when I'd prefer to just elbow a guy that's under me? To this day, I think the two most important ground game skills are how to escape from under a person and how to pin a person for ground and pound. That doesn't mean all the other stuff isn't good, but I feel like I can learn the two things I value most from other grappling systems that also spend more time doing things that I do like takedowns. Especially in today's modern competitive climate in BJJ, the art spends a lot of time on barambolos and things like that that I just couldn't care much less about. I think they're relatively esoteric and BJJ specific. I still keep up with what BJJ is doing. I make a point of watching a lot of different disciplines to see what the trends are and where the general art is going. But I never see myself going back and doing BJJ outside of maybe some casual stuff with buddies now and then. There are other honorable mentions. I'm not a huge fan of all the drugs in BJJ, for example. Not just the performance enhancing kind, but also how 1 in 3 training partners will have seemingly smoked all the weed in a 3-mile radius before practice. I don't mind people doing whatever they want to do in their free time. I just don't want to smell it during my practice time. I'm also not a huge fan of the whole like, ugh, don't speak Japanese type people. I view martial arts as a cultural product, and getting to engage in foreign cultures is a huge point of interest for me, and I think it just makes people into more educated people. I think it's a good thing to engage with languages and cultures on their own terms, and you might as well do so. You're already doing something you, at least theoretically, enjoy. It's just bonus education along with your mat fees or whatever. There are also some other gym culture things, like how some people just treat it like an adult playground and things like that. But overall, these are really minor and really going to depend on the gym. I also get the whole I do BJJ because I'm old or injured or I have work in the morning or whatever else. But I honestly don't really buy that too much. I do judo with like 60-year-old dudes and they're totally fine. I think people are capable of doing most martial arts, even when they don't think they are, well into old age and through injury. It just comes down to finding the right location, having the right mindset, communicating with your partners, and putting in the time. Overall, I think BJJ is sort of at least moving in the right direction. I just don't think it's ever going to be the direction for me. I'll continue to use it as a vehicle to explain things on my channel and definitely keep up with how it develops, but I don't see myself dropping time into it when I could just be dropping my time into my current 3 martial disciplines, one of which already does some ground game, which for me kind of covers the bases I mostly care about anyway. If you love BJJ, that's fantastic. If you don't, welcome to the club. As long as you're training, I don't really think it matters all that much. That's all for now. Peace.